to start recording and we will get the ball rolling here. All right, folks, Duke Machado here. We're podcasting again tonight. This is a special program. Local guests from Woodway, city of Woodway, here joining me tonight. And we're talking about this your mayor, your choice. You know, the work that we're trying to do to get the charter changed here in Woodway. That's the one thing that we might be able to do to make an impact here locally. You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but there's only a handful of people on the city council that select our mayor. And most of the people I talk to don't realize that. They think somehow they're voting for the mayor, but that is not the case. And so we're trying to make a change there. And we're going to get this series kicked off. Our first guests, I guess, joining us tonight, Gerry and Mayra Abendschein. Did I say that? I butchered that, didn't I?
A little bit. Abendschein.
Abendschein. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the program, and we're going to talk all about Woodway in this series here. I'll say, the Nextdoor app has been really interesting. I haven't used Nextdoor. Typically, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm, different sorts of outlets. But the Nextdoor app really became more known to me in this here recently with uh, with some local elections. So I kind of started paying attention, and then I tried to post some things and some ideas, and I just ran into resistance, immediate retaliation on my thoughts. I would almost call it attacks on me. Mayra, you saw some of those and you
Oh,
responded
yeah.
to some, which I just love when people jump in. But number one, just tell the folks a little about yourselves, and so we kind of get to know you a little bit before we get into the details, both you guys.
Um, I've lived here all of my life. My parents built this house in 1956. My dad was one of the ones that went to Austin and was one of the ones that was the promoters of the Woodway being incorporated. He was one of the first ones on one of the first councils. He
Mm,
ran for council. That was back when we did vote for our mayors. Um, and the whole idea of Woodway was supposed to be that the citizens were supposed to be the ones that designed it and rolled and ran it, not just one person. And it seems like it's evolved to that. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I am a little bit vocal about it. I do get passionate about it. I do kind of defend it. I do get attacked a lot on Nextdoor, and I realize that. But it's only because I know what it used to be like, and I want it to be that. I want it to stay that way. It's not
mm-hmm,
because I don't want change, and I do want change. I understand that eventually it is going to change, but I don't want it to change for the worse. I want it to change for the better. I
mm-hmm,
don't want it to change for big developers to come in and take us over. I
mm-hmm.
want it to stay that hometown, small town feel. It's not supposed to be the big city. If we wanted a big city, we'd move to Dallas
Yeah.
or Waco. But in Gary, he's pretty much moved. He's lived everywhere. He married me, and he knew I wasn't moving anywhere.
Nope.
So he's stuck here and he's joined our fight. But he understands and he believes in our whole passion.
So a couple of things. Yeah, Gerry, a little about yourself, so the viewers can get to know you a little bit.
Oh, I'm an Air Force brat. Father retired here in Waco when I was 15. My mother was born and raised here in Waco. Then I wound up meeting her a few years later, and I can't seem to get out of here, so I figure I might as well join the group.
Yeah. Well.
I've gotten to speak in depth with her dad about how things used to be, and he didn't like the way it was starting to change. Now, he passed away back in 2006, and he could see it that far back.
Mm,
Um, the, the city council just wasn't listening then. They're not listening now. Uh, they they voted for the mayor back then. Why it
Mhm.
changed, I don't know. It shouldn't.
Well, they didn't in 2006. They stopped in 2017, I believe. But yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it
I
was.
know
I
that,
think
but your
yeah.
father would talk about it back
Hmm.
that far. We spent a
So
lot of times in the fishing boat out there at the lake, drowning some worms.
yeah.
And I got to hear an awful lot about Woodway politics from that man.
Hmm.
And what we're seeing now is nothing compared to what he had set in motion back when they started all this years ago,
Hmm.
which is a
So
change.
I kind of got involved because I attended a couple of meetings, and I'm not. I have to admit, I'm not like, some folks go to a lot of meetings, and they go to the Parks and Rec meetings, they go to the City Council meetings, and the Planning and Zoning meetings, and they're very involved. I'm not that involved, but from what I have seen in the videos that I watch online, it it sure seems to me like everything is already set in motion, and the people, even the few that turn up, the handful that actually show up and speak against maybe the agenda of the current administration, um, it doesn't even matter what they say. The
Okay.
agenda, the decisions have already been made. You guys have
Right.
been to these meetings. What are your thoughts on all that?
It's like my dad used to say. They had the meeting before the meeting.
Hmm.
So before the meeting, they meet in the back room. The most of the council meetings. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, the council members do, with the exception of two, and I can call them out, and I think everybody knows who they are. But with the exception of two black sheep that's on our council members or the council board,
You're talking about David Russell and Dave Keaston.
that's the two.
Mm-hmm.
They do not meet in the back. For some reason, they're not invited to that party.
Hmm.
But when the others come out, they already know what the agenda is going to be. They already know how it's going to go. They already know what the vote's going to be. They already know who's going to make the motion. They already know who's going to second it.
Hmm.
And they already know who they're going to vote for. So when we had this last election and we knew that whoever won was going to have the power because we had three people up, whoever got those three people in was going to have the power in the council. That's a bad place to be.
Hmm.
We should never have that. It should be that that council member is voting for their ward, not
Hmm.
for the council. That was the reason why we had the wards divided up the way that they were, not because the mayor could sway them. But the meeting before the meeting is that someone, I will say that it's probably our mayor, is dictating who's going to vote for who and what the motion's going to be made. If you'll notice on some of these meetings, there's times when I mean, we'll look over to Stuart and go, "Are you going to make that motion?" And she'll go, "Oh yeah, yeah," and she'll start quoting that motion out.
Hmm.
And she'll say, "Oh, are you going to second it, Ken?" And Ken Surrey will second it. They already know who's going to do it. They just missed their cue. And when they did the voting for the mayor, which we knew, they called us out on next door and said that we were wanting David Russell to be the mayor. That was not the reason that we were voting for those three. I will say I wasn't voting for those three because I wanted David Russell in. I had no idea David Russell wanted to be the mayor.
Hmm.
And when I said that's not what we were doing, I honestly mean it. Even though the other side
Yeah.
kept saying, y'all are only wanting to stack the deck because you want Russell to be the mayor.
We
And
never had that discussion with him, not once.
it
Hmm.
wasn't until 2 weeks before the election when Russell said, well, when I become mayor, well, when you become what? That was news to us. Now, back on the subject, um,
Back,
when Amin when he was being elected in, if you'll notice on that meeting, the person that made the motion already knew she was going to be making the motion. The person that was making the second already knew she was making the second. She just made the motion. Gilman made the motion a little too early. And they said, oh, not yet. because she already knew that she was scheduled to do that.
Doesn't this sound an awful lot like the old wrestling matches where they already had it scripted?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can almost hear them
Who are
telling
the
each
winners?
other what the next
Yeah.
move is going to be.
So for
Yeah.
them to say they didn't have a meeting before the meeting, that's not true. They know that they did, and it's very, very obvious.
So
Now, back in February when we had that city council meeting, um, I was told I was very disrespectful because I turned my back on the council. Well, the reason I did that is I had tried to speak my mind on Nextdoor, and my posts would be deleted. So that was my way of being able to talk to the folks there in Woodway on a venue that they could not delete. And I reminded the voters of Woodway that we are the ones that run the city. The city council and the mayor are merely tools to get us to where we need to be and what we're looking for.
hmm
I don't see a problem with that.
so
But I got attacked like you would not believe on
no, I
the
believe I
social
believe
media.
it.
But yet it was perfectly okay for Ken Surrey's wife to stand up at the last council meeting and shame the 2 days and tell them how they were not, they should not have stood up at the Parks meeting and said anything because that council member that was not accepted. I
You
mean, that was
know, we I've witnessed how they try to silence our voices. The will, and I don't know if they're real people. I've heard that they're not. I've heard they're fake accounts, but they attack and they will flag a comment as disrespectful. That's the word that they like to use. That it's disrespectful, somehow violates next door policies. It doesn't matter. There's about a dozen of them, and they're in place to shut down any opposing voices. So you guys are definitely opposing voices. I'm an opposing voice. Um, so it really got me to thinking about, look, what can we do to change the way that to change the dynamics? And I started thinking, and I posed the question early, over a year ago, to David Russell. Why can't the people elect our mayor? I mean, if the mayor was elected by the people, surely he's going to care a little bit more when the people go up and speak. He's going to be a little more beholden to the individual voters of the city versus the four people that put him in his place. And it wasn't met with a lot of excitement back then, but now I feel like this idea of changing the charter to give the people the opportunity to vote for mayor is a growing concept. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, it's changing it back. Woodway used to vote for their mayor before. Why it changed in the first place, I've no
I
clue.
have never figured out why it changed. But I will say this: if we ever changed back, they would have a problem because I think the mayor was another council member. It was not the council members. We had the same number of council members. We just had an additional member being the mayor. He didn't participate in the votes. He was a tiebreaker, but he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a voter. And he didn't get to run the meeting in the behind the scenes. And I think that's what made it fair. Um, I think, what was really telling was on election day. Lisa Corzall came up to me, interestingly, and starts yelling at me, screaming at me, telling me how she wants to be friends with me. And I told her, I said, this is not the way you want to be friends. Don't come up to me and yelling at me and screaming at me, yelling me, telling me you want to be friends. If you want to be friends, come into me a friendly way and do it. But and she's talking to me about respect and how we should be open to hear people. And I said, open to hear people? No, there is no openness to hear because your husband has shut everybody down first off. You don't hear anything we say. And
No.
that's the problem.
Mm.
We want to be heard, and he's not listening. She was, well, maybe we should have a sit down to talk about it. And I said, we've asked for that. We have yet to get it.
I
When
tried to
did we
do
get
that.
that?
I tried to do that with the bike lane when it went in, and I got shut down at every corner. The only thing I could do was use our Freedom of Information Act, Public Information Act. And
Mm-hmm.
even now, I'm still not getting the information I'm asking for. Uh, Donna, the city secretary, has shut it down as far as the information I've gotten. I finally got a list on charges that were made, but they're coded. It doesn't say what it was spent on. And when I asked for some kind of form that would decipher what each one of those codes stood for, I got an email back from her saying that there wasn't one and that I was not going to get one, nor would one be made up because the people who do make up those bills know exactly what those codes mean, and I'm just not going to get it,
Mm.
which makes no sense.
Well, and that's what opens the door for the speculation that there's something going on that they don't want the people to know about. That's what
Right.
gets the mind stirring. What's going on here? Why are we spending $500,000 plus on a bike lane that, if I remember right, you said initially was sold to us as a $200,000 project? Um,
Right. It
there's.
doesn't make sense at all. We're looking, the last amount we got was $503,000. And the problem with that is there were still several other bills that needed to come in. So it actually is going to go higher than that. And
Hmm.
if you take a look at what's been done to estates, the problem that we have is we've got 6 blocks where they painted new lines on the road. That's all. You've got new paint. Okay, and you've gone and put reflective posts.
Yeah, and
And
and when you're coming into Woodway from Hewitt, crossing the bridge, coming into Woodway, that little sharp end right there, and the lane change, that's
right,
dangerous. That's
I've got photos of an accident that happened there.
mm,
Or try to pull out of Midway Drive on a school day, going to work, and you have to navigate. Are they turning or are they going straight? And you're pulling onto estates to go to your left, and you don't know whether it's safe to pull out or not. I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of scary to pull out there because you don't really know. And even now, when school's been let out, you still kind of wonder: are they turning or are they going straight? Because not
Mm.
always are they going straight.
Let me
So
ask
it's
you.
pretty scary.
So there's other things that you have the bike lane. Now there's all these issues with the Woodway Family Center. And,
Right,
and look, this whole thing about mayor getting to elect a mayor isn't really about this mayor or this council. It's really about the future and future mayors, the city that we want and the leadership that we want. That's really what this charter change is about. But they make it so easy because
Deception.
of the decisions that they're making and the things that they're deciding to do and continue. It just raises so many questions as to why they're moving forward. There's a lot of developer involvement. There's a lot of things that you might question. Where's the money going? Who's getting the money? What is this all about? And they're it's not like they're playing into our hands, but they're just moving forward with their agenda. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on their tactics?
I'd love to know what their agenda was all the time. It seems like it opens up a new agenda every time we turn around. When we went to our last meeting with for our parks board, I wasn't there for to go through the walkthrough on the old family center. I understood that they had an engineer that went through there and did an assessment of that building, and they said that there was nothing wrong with that building. He did an inspection of the whole building. The ACs are working saying that they could open up that day. And in fact, they did, unbeknownst to the rest of us.
Well, not only that, but they've also been renting out the original family center too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They,
So if they can make money off of that original family center, why aren't they doing it?
they told us
And that's a decision that's made by the mayor and the city manager.
in that meeting, they told us they could not rent that building out, that they were not going to open it up because it was unsafe. The ceiling would fall in. But on Thursday afternoon, since then, I noticed that they had been renting it out. So I posted on Nextdoor and I said, does anybody know who's meeting at the old family center on Thursday evenings? And someone answered me back and said, yes, it's an investment class. Somebody is renting it out for an investment seminar. Really, who? And then nobody said who, but they stopped doing it. They have been using that family center for other than just the restrooms, contrary to what they said in that meeting. And yet they told us we couldn't use it now. They have been in violation on that deed for the last 2 years now, and they're leaving the door wide open for the Richards to take it. But once the Richards take it, or rather the Colemans take it, Richards are the daughter of Coleman. When they take that land back, they're going to lose that parking lot, those ball fields, everything. They do realize, I hope they realize, they're going to have to lease that parking lot back, or they're going to have to build a new parking lot because they did not allow for a parking lot. And Kristen Jack said in that parks meeting, or she let it slip, that was not the plan to just keep the family center. The original plan was to make that the parking lot because we didn't allow for one for the new family center. They never let that known to the public. That was a behind the scenes meeting. That's something they didn't let the rest of us know, and she just told us.
And this has all been spearheaded by the mayor.
And the mayor was in on that. When the daughter of Mr. Coleman stood up and spoke, Susan Richards, when she stood up and spoke, as soon as she got through speaking, Amin left that meeting and the text started flying. He started texting everybody on that board. Nobody knew what they were going to vote until, well, that's my summation, until everybody was confused about how to vote, until they started looking at their phones and reading texts. And then they were like, okay, well, we need to vote this out.
So they called for a vote, and the initial response or the initial vote said to keep the Woodway Family Center.
That's right.
And then what happened?
And then there was some talk. Kristen read her phone and she whispered to Ashley, and then she told Kevin Tankersley that they needed to have another vote. And Kevin asked the city attorney if they could have another vote. And he says, absolutely. So he called another vote. That vote still said we keep the building and we don't tear it down. And we open it tomorrow for 30 days to see how it runs. So they talked about it a little bit more. And then Kevin, for some reason, I'm not sure exactly why, he said, can we have another vote? And the city attorney said, I think we should. But y'all need to ignore what was said about the deed and consider just what we have discussed. Nothing about what has been said here tonight.
Now, this is the same attorney who told Donna that she did not have to give me a Freedom of Information Act.
And they voted, and only one person voted to keep it, and the rest of them said tear it down.
So
That's
they just kept.
So
they just kept taking votes until they got it to go their way.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Why didn't they vote a fourth time?
Sounds like a bunch of spoiled, rotten kids that went and asked Dad if they could borrow the car. He said no, so they're going to go talk to Mom to see if the answer would change.
So democracy's not at play here.
No, we're dealing with children.
If democracy was at play there, you were going to go on your first vote.
There's no way, and this always happens, but there's no way to like prove personal gain. No. But you can kind of follow the actions of people and see what their interests are and see if they align with maybe the agendas of of what they're doing, I guess. And then even at that point it's speculation unless you're going to sue somebody and file for some sort of subpoena on documents or text messaging or whatever, but no one's going to do that.
Are
But
they?
who are these people? Like what's their mission?
Well, are they going to sue somebody? Because Susan Richards has already told them that she's going to go talk to her attorney, and she has been talking to them. But from what I understood, her attorney has steps that he's going to be taking on this. I don't know what they are to be exact, but I do know that they do have steps that they're going to be taking. I
Hmm.
don't know if Woodway's going to end up with that property or not.
Well, there's you told me a story, and it's kind of personal. I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but it really showed me the character of someone. And we don't have to go there if you don't want to, but it's
Okay.
um, I was blown away at that story. And if you're
Are we
willing,
talking about a moon?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes those personal stories need to be shared in order to have people understand what our motivation is and the length that that man will go to
Exactly.
to gain anything.
They're not the easiest stories to tell. It's not the best stories to tell, but sometimes they're stories that people need to know what we're dealing with. So it was about 2 or 3 weeks after our son had passed away here in our house. He was 30. We had been through a lot with
He
him.
he had a heart condition that we didn't know about, and he had a heart attack here in the house and passed.
The police had come in, they had taken his phone, and they kept saying they were going to go through his phone, which is fine. But we wanted his phone back so that we could go through and notify his friends. So we had gone to the next council meeting to talk to the police chief, which, by the way, was Khalil at the time. And we knew that Khalil and him were good friends. And we wanted to see if we could just get his phone back. Um, so we got there a little late. The council meeting had already started. Khalil was in the meeting. We couldn't just disrupt the meeting. So we sat through the meeting. After the meeting was over, Khalil was talking to some other people. So we were waiting our turn. And Amin made a beeline for us. And he came over and spoke to us, and he said, he didn't say, I'm sorry for your loss or I'm sorry for anything. He just said, I understand you lost your son and you don't want to live in that house anymore. There's bad memories. I'm trying to buy as many houses as I can in Woodway. I would like to offer you something on your house. I would like to buy it so you don't have to worry about selling it. You want to what?
We told him we weren't even thinking about selling it at that point, and he says, "Well, when you do decide to sell it,
Call me.
I want to be the first one you contact."
I just walked away from him crying because at that time I wasn't in the mood to talk about that. I just couldn't believe he asked me that. And by the time we got to Khalil, of course, then I couldn't even talk to him. But, you know, I couldn't believe the nerve of him to come up and just say that.
Our son hadn't even been buried 2 weeks yet.
How dare him ask us, let me just buy your house?
Well, but it was something about he wants to buy a lot of homes in Woodway.
He
Right.
wants to buy a lot of homes in Woodway. He wants to buy as many homes in Woodway as he possibly can. Well, good for him, but he's not going to buy mine. So when all this came about the bike lane and our house values are dropping because of the traffic and everything, he doesn't care. That's his goal. Let's bring these house values down so that so I can better purchase them.
Well, that's the
That's
only
my
thing we
theory.
could figure. That's the only thing we could
Because I
figure.
think he's that heartless.
Mm.
If he would come up to someone who just buried their son and say that to them, I think he would do that. Now, that was the argument between Lisa and I that day on election day. She does not believe he would say that. Well, I didn't make that up.
Mm.
He did it.
I keep
Wow.
telling people if we keep telling the truth and we stick to that, eventually it's going to come out. Because the first time we try and lie to folks, we're going to lose all credibility, and then the battle's lost.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been shooting straight from the hip from day one. We have not changed at all. And anything that I've ever said in city council meetings or to people when I'm talking about it, it if I can't prove it, I don't say it.
So our son died March of 2023. And of course, we were out of commission for quite a while. At that same time, my husband was going through cancer treatments,
Mm.
and we did the whole cancer surgeries, and he is now 100% cancer free. But
Mm.
we went through a lot during that time. And so I think we missed about 2 years. So we did not know really what was going on until they put
Yeah.
that bike lane in. And that kind of woke us up to what reality was going on around us. And we realized we'd missed a lot.
Right.
Mm.
And so when we saw that, we said, we've got to get back into this and start fighting because this is not going well at all.
And every single story that we have heard or looked into, it all leads back to our mayor.
Yes.
So this.
So electing a new mayor, that would
Mhm.
be great. I would
Yeah.
love to see that. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people that would vote him out. And when you have the mayor and one of the council members say something about, well, if we leave this up to the people of Woodway, then it's not going to pass.
That's
Mm.
almost
That
like
tells me something right there.
that's like a child coming in and telling you, I didn't ask for permission because you were going to say no. Well, of course I was going to say no. Why didn't you ask for permission?
Yeah.
You knew
Yeah.
it was wrong.
Right.
So what would you say to the council members right now, the leadership who's there?
I think leadership is an overstatement. I,
I don't know that there's anything we can say to them that they're going to listen to.
I don't see them leading anything except for some kind of advantage for them. I have yet to see anything that they have done for the people of Woodway that would benefit just the people of Woodway and not them in some form or
I
fashion.
would tell them that they need to reevaluate who they're following and to realize that some of this they could be held responsible themselves for what they're doing.
No, they can be. I even stated that in a meeting
Well, they
at one
can
of the
be,
council meetings.
and they may be. Yes.
And they also need to understand that with some of the people that I've been contacting down in Austin, they can get prosecuted. They can have to get to the point to where they need to get counsel. And the one thing that they need to realize is that by being elected officials of the city's coffers will not pay for their attorney.
Well, they can't. It's illegal for them to do that.
Exactly.
Mm.
And if they are afraid they're going to get caught, then I suggest they better stop.
So there was a case down in San Antonio where a golf course was put in next to a homeowners association. Homeowners association was against it because of the traffic that it was going to cause. And it was also going to keep them just having one way in and one way out of their homeowners association. They fought it against the city council. The city council voted against them and put it in anyway.
Mm.
The homeowners association hired an attorney and they sued the city council. City council as a whole, the city council individual, each member individually, and they won. And that was
The
a
homeowners,
precedent.
the homeowners did.
That was a precedent case.
Mm.
So that allowed anybody who wants to sue their city council members individually, they can. And that's because of that precedent case.
Mm.
So when Gillian, I forget her name now, when Jillian says that she is afraid of being sued, she should be. Because when they voted for this bike lane, knowing that this was going to be a safety hazard for everybody that was on it, the kids being on it, the drivers on it, everything, they can each be held responsible for their vote. When they voted for this new family center to be built and expending taxpayers' money, they can all be sued for that. When and if they tear down that old family center, and the Coleman family decides to hold them responsible for that, and they sue them, they can each be sued individually and be held responsible for that. So they need to very seriously consider that. Because not only can the city be charged, but they can too. And the city will not pay for their legal representation. The city will only pay for the representation of the city, not them. They are volunteers. They are not uh, paid employees.
Well, well, I feel like there is a sense or the movement that we're doing here with this charter. It's growing. I want it to continue to build, and we're going to have more local residents on, just like yourselves, who've had enough and have plenty to say. And I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing what you have and telling your stories. It's important that the people know it's not about me. It's not about anyone in particular. It's about the movement to change this charter so we can, as you say, Gerry, take things back to how they were. But to just, I see it as making the mayor accountable to the people. That's what
100%.
I don't see.
Well, I like the fact that I got to speak with one of the founding fathers of this city and listening to the reasoning behind it as to why they incorporated, because they didn't want Waco to come in and take over and run it like Waco. They
Mm,
didn't want any of the others, in the state to tell them how to run their community. That the people of this community should be the ones to run it, not a city council, not a mayor, but the people.
But I noticed on Nextdoor, someone said something to you and said that the mayor is a very weak mayor. He doesn't have a lot of powers.
right.
And it's not going to matter who votes for him. Well, if it doesn't matter who votes for him, why are they against it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember that's one of the common responses is like you're making a big deal out of nothing. The mayor doesn't even really have any power, but I don't believe it, and I think it's a tactic to keep us to throw us off the trail. We're on a trail, and it's kind of leading, kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think the people of Woodway are waking up. I know that our petition is growing, and that we're getting lots of signatures, and I'm not going to disclose how many yet, but the movement will, I feel, will succeed, but we need to continue to grow and develop and get more support behind it and more city residents behind this. So I'm grateful to you coming on and joining. Give you each a last word.
Well, about that petition, I've been out of town on business. I haven't had my chance to sign it. So, first chance we get, we need to get together so I can.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely do
And,
that.
and again, my closing statement, I would love to get this town back to the way my father in law talked about it. You
We
know,
Mm,
need to say Waco.
I like
I
the
say
way
Woodway and make it Woodway again.
I like the way he spoke about it, the passion that he showed on why he did it and how the city was then. I would love to see that city again. And with the people we've got in power now, it's not going to happen. We've got to
mm,
figure out a way to get them out of there. We need to figure out a way to get people in that think like my father-in-law did. It was never about himself. It was about the people.
mm-hmm.
And that's why Woodway became such uh, a neighborhood that people wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that growing up, even 40 years ago. Woodway was where you wanted to be because they took care of themselves. They made sure everything was done right.
Everybody knows everybody. We all got along. We were all neighbors. And that's what it should be.
Oh, that's a great way to end it. I appreciate both of you again. Folks, Duke Machado, we podcast because we have to get our own word out. We are our own media. So this is the truth. These are real people, real stories, and we're going to continue to bring more as this campaign continues. I appreciate you tuning in, and thank you, Gerry and Mayra, for your honest story tonight. I appreciate it. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Duke Machado, we're out of here.